Dr Reena here. I'm a dental specialist and founder of RW Perio, located at 75 Harley Street. Welcome to my podcast, Life and Smile, where we talk about everything dental, lifestyle, business, and much more. Every episode, I'm joined in conversation with a specialist expert in their chosen field, who give us a behind-the-scenes glimpse into their daily regime, career turning points, and an insider look at what they can't live without. As a businesswoman myself, it's so inspiring to hear how people have built their careers and shattered those glass ceilings. So let's get the conversation going. Very excited to give you an insider's glimpse with our guest today. She's built an incredible career working very 360 across the lifestyle, wellness, health and beauty industry. There really isn't anything that she hasn't covered in her career as an editorial director and journalist. To add to this, she's also extremely talented and renowned in the world of yoga. She's a qualified yoga teacher and is the author of the book Everyone Try Yoga. She's so inspiring and motivating for making yoga accessible for everyone. It is, of course, Victoria Woodhall. Welcome. I'm so glad you could join us for the podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Reena. Really delighted to be here.
So, as we said, you built such an incredible career with a background focused on wellness, lifestyle, as a journalist and editorial director, but in a time where things have really dramatically changed in the industry, largely with the onset of digitalization and consumerism and the demand for that sort of instant access for everything. How do you feel this has impacted your sort of day-to-day role? For example, now with the use of Instagram Lives, do you feel it enables you to interact more personally with your audience? Have you found that sort of shift over the last few years?
Yeah, well, I've certainly surfed the whole digital wave. When I trained as a journalist in local newspapers in Salisbury, we had computers, but we did everything by, taking good old-fashioned notes. I had to get my 100 words a minute shorthand to do court reporting, and because lots of places we couldn't take what cameras and digital devices we had in the late 90s, so it was very much paper based. I had a spike, when you put your press releases and your stories, bits of paper that you no longer need, it goes on a spike, and then gradually it became more and more paperless, which is obviously a good thing for the environment, but it does take up a lot of brain space, this idea of multi-screening. I mean, I see my children, they're doing homework and they will have YouTube and the podcast on and be doing their homework. And I think we've all had to learn to become more adaptable and a little bit more kind of tolerant of the multi-screening. When we're in meetings, people will get out their phones and start looking at their phones, right. And I think, oh, that's a bit rude, but actually they're probably looking something that's relevant to the conversation. So we've all had to change our focuses to the importance of digital, and of course, it's a brilliant way of spreading information very quickly and immediately. I love working digital. I love doing Instagram Lives. And I've got, like you, I've got this whole community, and through my live yoga, which I do twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays at 8 a.m., I'm communicating with people. I have a student who is in New Zealand, never met her, but we're chatting on Instagram. And I love the way that social media allows you to keep in touch and to keep communities kind of bubbling under. And that's great for everyone's business, but also for learning about health and well-being, which is the business we're in.
For sure, you've got access to that world where it would no way near be possible to do without digital. So, completely agree. I think definitely trying to not just multitask, but multitask with different digital platforms. And you see the new generation now, it's just normal for them. So it's.
I think actually their brains work slightly differently. I really think, in their teenage years, they can multi-screen, and I say to them, well, how on earth you can't possibly be focusing properly on your homework if you've got this going on, but they can actually do it. Their results are good. I just have to kind of say, well, that's their way, and that's working.
Do you find that you still need to instill discipline though with that sort of digital? Do you have any rules or anything on that? Because it can get.
No, I have a friend who has a sort of safety deposit box, and everybody's devices has to go in there, and they get locked at a certain time. I mean, to be honest, I'm on my devices because I've got 3 different strands of my work, and there's always one of them that demands my attention. So it's as much self-discipline as anything. But I think just making kids aware of the importance of nature, the importance of taking a break, and not overloading yourself So I'm more about building awareness in them rather than micromanaging them.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit more. We can take you back from the sort of start of your career. What prompted you to initially start a career in your industry, and up till now, you've done so much. What would you say is your proudest moment to date?
Okay, what prompted me to start? Well, my first job after leaving university, I did a literature degree at Oxford, and which was great, but it didn't actually equip me with any skills in the workplace.
Okay.
And so I went into teaching. I was teaching business German, completely different, and I realised now I wanted something that was much more kind of about learning new things, about where I got to ask people questions. And so I ended up, the university that I was teaching at in Bournemouth had a journalism school. I ended up talking to some journalists, some teachers there, and they put me onto actually a training scheme. And I flourished there. I absolutely loved journalism, telling people stories, learning new things. And then I worked my way up through magazines, and then I was at Mail on Sunday for 10 years, and then I made the leap into digital. So I suppose the big risk for me in my career was I was at like a gilt-edged job on the Mail on Sunday's You magazine, and it was the magazine that nobody ever left because it was a really great job. I had great teammates, but at that point in 2016, I could see the rise of digital, and I was really into my health and wellness. I'd already been 10 years qualified as a journalist. I was always the person whose bag was rattling with supplements. If there was a new, juicer to try, I'd try and get my hands on it. I had the spiralizer. Honestly, I've got so many machines in the back of my cupboard gathering dust. And I was always a bit of a self-experimenter and biohacker, and I loved Get the Gloss, which was started in 2012, 2013, and I'd always read it, and I just thought that subject matter is something I'd like to know more about, but I'd also like to learn the digital landscape. And writing for digital is very different because obviously, as you know, you have to work out what Google is doing and what Google wants, because that's your kind of street vendor on the corner, selling papers. With Google, you have to reach out in the way that Google will recognize and get your stories to the biggest audience. So that was the biggest learning curve, was moving from print to digital. And I still write a lot for print. I write for the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday and Women's Health, and I love that. I love sitting there with the magazine. I love not being on a screen because I do it so much. But so making that leap was perhaps the biggest thing I've done. I suppose the proudest thing, oh gosh, I don't know. It's really hard to say. We're so busy.
Hard to pinpoint one thing.
I suppose, bringing up my two kids who seem to be fairly normal while working full time, and having my my side hustle as a yoga teacher. And managing to keep all those going. Yeah.
No, for sure. Big achievement. And tell us more about the yoga. So how did that all start up then? And when did it all kind of, how did you get interested in it?
Well, I was always, as part of my interest in well-being, I was always interested in fitness. I was quite sporty at school. But I was always quite stressed. And people always said to me in my 20s, oh, you really should take up yoga. And I thought, oh, God, that sounds really boring. And I think I must have been walking around like with a kind of blue light flashing on my head or something like that. And so I went to a couple of classes, and it seemed to be, how I describe it, as kind of full of seniors in socks. It was people with it seemed to have quite a limited range of movement, and were doing yoga because it was gentle and accessible and low impact. And I thought, this is not my tribe. Where are the people like me? And then when I was about 30, a new gym opened up down the road from us, and we had a corporate subscription at the company I worked in. And I thought, well, there's a yoga class here, I'll just give it a try. And it was a type of yoga called Ashtanga, and that didn't mean anything to me. But when I went to the class, it was really dynamic. It was very physical. It was quite fast. I hadn't a clue what went on, but I thought, I absolutely love this. And from then on, I never went back to a spin class. Amazing. I just wanted to do more of that because it just made me feel so good. And since then I've gone on to study, I've done several teacher trainings. I've gone on to study the philosophy and anatomy and lots of things about what makes yoga so effective as a kind of mind-body sort of wellness tool. But then I didn't know anything. I just felt it. Right. And, it stayed with me ever since.
So in terms of like daily benefits for someone who has zero experience in yoga, and as you said, sometimes it's imagined to be that kind of slow thing. As you said, there's so many different types of yoga. For you, and like on a daily basis, especially for people who are quite stressed, would you say the benefits are that it helps you? I mean, what would you say are your key benefits?
Well, yoga is basically a breath practice. So, but breath is quite a difficult thing for people to get, because breath is an unconscious action. But also more now, you can see there's breath coaches all over social media, and which is brilliant. People are realizing the importance of the breath. Mm-hmm. But your breath is, as you know, as a medic, is the one thing that you can do consciously and unconsciously. So you can make the unconscious conscious. So you can control your breath, which ends up controlling your nervous system and your mind. Right. So by calming and steadying the breath, you end up calming and steadying the mind. And with this dynamic form of yoga that I teach called rocket yoga, which is it's a sort of a more accessible version of Ashtanga. So still with the original style that I started with. So with rocket yoga, it's a sort of breath movement centered practice, and that's where you get the benefits. So you kind of instruct: inhale, lift your arm; exhale, cross it over. Right. So every movement is instructed with the breath, and you get this lovely pace. So inhale, exhale, even steady breath, and it becomes like a metronome. Right. And you're encouraged to take a deeper breath in and also a deeper breath out, because you can probably fill me in on the medical side of this, but as I understand it, the inhale is associated with the sympathetic nervous system. So, when you're running for a bus or away from a tiger, you're doing this very kind of sort of panting, sort of inhales, because you want energy to get away.
Yeah, makes sense.
But, we are often in a stressful state, and we're doing this kind of shallow breathing focused on the inhale, because we're not running away from anything, but we're in this stress state. So what we do is try and focus to even out the breath, so you're in a balanced state, and also in some parts of the practice towards the end, when you're calming down, focus on the long exhale, which is the parasympathetic system, so the rest and digest response. So you're balancing your nervous system while also putting your body through a kind of 360-degree range of motion, because our habit patterns, we've got so many labor-saving devices. We know we no longer need to sort of turn, and when we're reversing the car, we can just look at a screen. You don't need to twist behind you. We've got swivel chairs. We've got chairs, full stop. So our body is in a very limited range of motion. So a daily yoga practice keeps everything lubricated. It's sort of your daily MOT. And people say to me, I say, well, join my class. And I can't do yoga. So there's this perception of you have to be able to do yoga to do yoga. That's because so true, people see these, fancy poses, and they think it's about doing fancy poses. But, obviously the poses look good, but it's about how they feel. So in a way, even the people who are doing the fancy poses, they've always got somewhere to go. So wherever you are in your practice, and that's what I say, is everybody's feeling the same on the inside. Everybody is calming the breath, and everybody is working to their edge, whatever it looks like. It may look very different on the outside, but everybody's doing the same on the inside, just working to calm their nervous system, find their edge, and put their body through the full range of motion. And you see lots of dancers and people who are very bendy that can go into these yoga poses really easily, but that often is through training the muscles in a very specific way and overriding stretch reflexes. And I certainly know my physio says that, his clinic is full of older dancers who no longer have the muscle strength to support their joints. So being overly flexible isn't, there's no prizes for that. What you want is strength, balance with flexibility and stability. So, and a balanced breath. So those are the things we work on.
Amazing. I think that's a really important point, that some people think that, you have to have a certain level of fitness or flexibility before starting yoga. But as you said, you can start anywhere.
Exactly.
You don't have to have done any other exercise. Would you say it's for everyone? And
anyone?
anyone?
I couldn't touch my toes when I started yoga. I mean, there's lots of people who are naturally flexible who gravitate towards yoga because it's something, that feels accessible, but I'm just basically quite a stiff, stressed person who's been doing it a long time. So I can get into some of these poses, but it's just, millimeter by millimeter, a little bit every week over years. Really is a practice for life.
And do you think you need to do it every day to feel the benefits for someone who, and I know time it's all about priorities, so we should make time for things like this, but someone who's starting off, what would be like the minimum time you have to dedicate, say, per week to start seeing the benefits? Or is it okay to start slow? Would you say actually from the beginning?
I think, consistency trumps intensity.
Okay.
So it's really, it's much better to do a little bit of movement within your range and just work on sort of increasing your range.
Right.
And also you get the breath benefits every day. So I would say little and often. They say no longer than 3 days between yoga practices. That's if you're a serious practitioner, and you're really kind of want to work on, certain things.
Fine.
But, in order to feel the benefits, I felt the benefits right from my very first class. So I think you feel them and then you start wanting more because you can feel that good. So it becomes motivating to do it more. But, everyone falls off the wagon though.
Yeah.
So...
But stay as disciplined as you can. So talk us through your sort of wellness regime. What's your kind of typical day? Do you practice yoga in the mornings? What's your kind of wellness regime?
I try and do something every morning. I didn't this morning because Get the Gloss, which is my the health and wellness platform and beauty platform that where I'm editorial director. We were having a huge technical shift, I got up and went straight to my desk.
Fine.
But normally I would get up. I get up around about 6:15. I will have a cup of green tea. I'm very specific about my green tea. I have from the London Tea Company. I have Sencha, and it's just really delicious. I have 2 cups of that, and I will usually do my rocket yoga practice with my teacher over Zoom at 6:30 to 7:30. Or if I'm doing my own lives, which I do on Wednesdays and Fridays at 8 on Instagram, I will do that. That will become part of my practice, although it's not quite the same when you're teaching because you're looking and you can't talk and do the breath at the same time. But it's absolutely better than nothing. And I do feel good for doing that half hour. And then I will do an in-person class on a Saturday. So I'll just do whatever I can. The other week I did another teacher training. So it's 3 days solid of rocket yoga. So
are there any practices like throughout the day, not necessarily like too physical, but just are there any things that our listeners can do even if they're sitting at a desk to help them focus on their breathing? Are there little tips and tricks that we can do?
Oh yeah, loads. Yeah. So one thing I like to do at the end of the class is humming breath.
Okay.
So you breathe out with sound, so like that, and even when you do it you can feel the resonance in your chest, and I like to put one hand flat on my breastbone and the other hand on the top, so I'm feeling it with my hands, and just breathe in deeply and then breathe out with sound 3 times, and that has 2 lovely benefits. One is you're not looking at your screen when you're doing it. Close your eyes ideally. 2, you're taking this long out breath, so you're starting to move out of fight or flight. You're putting your body into a habit with this long out breath of getting into your relaxation response. And thirdly, you are toning the vagus nerve, which runs, as you know, I'm sure you know much more about this than me, from the brainstem all the way down into our internal organs, and it comes quite near the surface at the back of the throat, and I think behind the breastbone is a place where you can access it. And so vibroacoustic therapy, I mean, there are all sorts of devices which will vibrate on your chest.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I've got have I got one in my bag? Yeah, the Sensei. there's a pebble that does it called the Sensei. I love it, and it provides a kind of humming, pulsing. You lie with it on your breastbone, and it kind of cuts through the mental chatter and just really, really helps calm me down. So if I don't sleep terribly well, so if I wake in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, I'll have half an hour on my Sensate pebble.
Yeah.
So you can do that. But I would always do, I mean, shaking is fantastic. Stand up and shake. It just redistributes the energy. Putting your legs up the wall if you've been sitting, if you've got fluid pooling in your legs, lie side onto the wall, raise your legs up and then turn to face the wall. It's legs up the wall pose, it's called. And then you put your hands in a kind of cactus, like a Pac-Man shape, sort of open up the chest so you get a bigger breath. But what that does is it helps the lymph. So as you know, the lymph has no pump, so we need to move. And if we're sitting at a desk, we're not moving. So if you help the lymph by putting the legs up the wall, you can even just rest them on this, lie on your back and rest them on the sofa. So shaking, tapping, you know, I love that. I follow a Chinese medicine expert called Katie Brindle, who is a brilliant advocate of making these wellness practices called Yang Sheng, which is the Chinese version of self-care, ancient time-honoured practices, making them into kind of little 1-minute bite-sized things that you can do throughout the day. So I follow her and I pick up quite a few tips from her on tapping, sort of body drumming. She's got a few gadgets that are quite ancient, but she's modernized them. So she's got a body drummer, which looks like one of those things where that if you've got a dog, you know, that people throw the balls, they have a tennis ball and it's kind of like a long arm. It looks a bit like that, but the ball bit at the end has got little kind of rubber spikes on, and you kind of whack your body with it, and it increases circulation. And also a bamboo tapper, which looks like a giant matcha whisk, and you tap it all over your body. It just re-energizes you. And it's just a really nice 1-minute break.
Nice. So lots of little things that you can do throughout the day just to no, for sure, that's really helpful, thank you. And on that theme of yoga, are there any sort of piece of equipment? We've mentioned equipment, but what about clothing, things like that? Do you feel that makes a difference as well with
yes, I like leggings that feel like a second skin. So I like things that feel really comfortable. They've got no zips in. Right. I often do things like, you know, I'll be rolling around on the floor. I'll be resting on parts of my, you know, my sacrum. So I like the Sweaty Betty. Yes. It used to be called the really thin ones. What are they called? Contour, I think. Okay. They're called Contour. Anyway, the thinnest ones that they have. And Lululemon Align. Yes. They're really good. And they are expensive, but they last. You know, I had my Lululemons for 10 years and I use them all the time. So they're
it's worth investing in good quality pieces.
So anything, I'd say, if you want to take up yoga, just wear whatever you're comfortable in, and you can move in. You don't have to wear anything fancy, but I would just say nothing that kind of digs in and that makes you go, because you are holding poses and you're breathing, and then you might become aware. Right. Because we want to become aware of our bodies and our bodily sensations. So, you don't want to become aware of an annoying zip or label.
Yes. No, it makes complete sense. So whatever you're comfortable in, basically. Yeah. Fine. So obviously you've achieved a lot, not just in your work career, your family, the whole balance, the whole lifestyle approach, essentially. What is it that inspires you? Is it through yoga you gain inspiration? What is it? Is there a book or a mentor? Tell us more about your inspirations around you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm inspired by the community that everyone I teach, because they say, oh my gosh, I'm just, I never thought of trying it like that. Or, you do find your fit with your yoga teacher, and it is worth trying a few different styles and a few different teachers, because I do think there's a kind of element of chemistry there. You find them, as I said, I didn't enjoy my first few sessions of yoga, but I found the one. Right. So I love seeing how people start to feel the benefits, because it's just it's pretty much sort of, it's a free practice, and it's time honored, and it really is puts your body through all the things it's meant to do. Yes. In terms of mentors, I mean, Katie Brindle, who I mentioned earlier, I think she's a really positive advocate for women. She has really helped me believe that I could set up my own yoga platform, which is in the pipeline. So hopefully people will be able to do longer classes with me, because on Instagram I only do half-hour tasters. Right. So she's really inspired me to do that. But she's got a real can-do attitude, and she does these things called Bazi readings, which are Chinese medicine, astrology, chart readings, but very different. But I learned a lot from my Bazi reading with her, which helped me sort of make the next leap. I'm always, like, my bedside table is full of books. I read, I've got a stack of books there's great books on menopause now by Alice Smelly, Mariella Frostrup, called Cracking the Menopause. And there's another one called The Perimenopause Solution by Emma Bardwell and Dr. Shazadi Harper, which is excellent.
Okay.
So I read those for my own interests, but also for work. And yeah, so that's
inspiration all around you, I guess. So the people around you, the books. That's great. I think it's great we can all kind of inspire each other, and as you said, everyone's on their own kind of path, but you can gain inspiration from other people. And
there's so much to learn from. I meet experts like yourself all the time through work, and I really love doing that, and I learn so much from each one.
Yeah, and actually, in terms of just linking the industries, I think from the dental point of view, I think things like yoga and making sure you're looking after yourself is so important, because unfortunately with us, a lot of the time, sometimes we're kind of like hunching over. It's quite a physical job in itself. So when we run our teaching classes, we always actually incorporate one session during the program on yoga and fitness.
Oh, really?
And just simple, as I'm sure you would agree, just simple stretches and poses, even that you can do throughout the day between patients, can make such a big difference. One of the number one reasons dentists or dental professionals retire early is because of things like back pain and neck pain.
Yes, of course.
So
you're always bending, hunching over.
So I think definitely for the dental professionals out there, it's worth like almost looking after your body like an athlete. Otherwise, if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after your patients, I guess. So do you feel, because I really think there's been a shift in, especially in dental, not just on aesthetics, but really like a 360 spin back to health now being super important as well. I think there was this kind of, everyone was just going on about aesthetics, which is important, but there's been a real shift in terms of health first. Do you find that with your community as well?
Yes, absolutely. And I think COVID really taught us that, didn't it? Definitely. I mean, it also taught us the link between healthy gums, and I think there was a COVID link.
Right. Yes, there was.
Link.
Yeah. So no, I think things are changing, which is great.
We know more about the microbiome in the gut. There's a mouth microbiome. There's sort of little planets of bacteria everywhere, and we're really learning that we're really only the hosts. They're the masters.
Yeah, and everything is connected. I think before there was a real disconnect between the mouth and the rest of the body, and now I think everyone's realised that. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised, but if something affects your mouth, it's going to affect the rest of your body. It's like the portal to the rest of your body. So
you were asking me about my wellness regime, and I'm a massive tongue cleaning advocate.
Yes, great. Yeah.
So I know when the first time I saw Dr. Reena, she said offered me her tongue scraper. I said, I've got 5 of those, but yours is so much nicer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it literally doesn't take very long, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And once you've done it, it just feels gross not to.
Exactly. I completely agree. So in terms of sort of your career so far, are there any challenges that you faced, or any failures that you faced when perhaps for someone who's starting out, whether it's in yoga, whether it's in kind of the editorial side of things, what would be your advice to them as well? So if someone was starting out, things were not going so well, what would be your advice?
Well, I think trying to find somebody who's a little bit further along in their career, and asking them for advice. I think that's, just reaching out. And that's the great thing about social media, is that it allows us to do that. So, keeping the conversation open, and also that makes you feel a bit less like you're spiraling if you, if your career's not going so well. But also, I mean, going back to yoga again, because I love it, but, I think with a practice like yoga, and whatever it is that works for you, is that we're always changing, we're always learning, always changing, and it gives you a real flexible mindset, and it makes you comfortable with discomfort. So that's kind of part of it. We always work to a slight edge of like, oh, there's something new happening, and that keeps you mentally open for new opportunities, and keeps you comfortable with the fact that things are always changing, which they are, and the pandemic taught us that. Definitely. So keeping a flexible mindset. And if you think, oh my gosh, how do I develop a flexible mindset? Well, start yoga, and everything else will follow.
Yoga is the answer to everything.
Well, I would say that.
No. I completely agree. In terms of, I have one more question for you. So you mentioned the pebble that you sometimes carry around with you. If there are another sort of 2 or 3 things that you can't leave the house without, what would they be?
Oh, right. I have actually got my pebble here. Nice. I'm going to show you later. Yes. We'll have a little go. Now I've got actually in my bag these CBD 24-hour bright chloris. They're 24-hour release patches. They're quite high strength CBD. They've got 16 milligrams.
Okay.
And they're tiny little films, and you stick them on any place that you've got a soreness or injury. And I hurt my back the other week, and I basically plastered myself with these, and expecting nothing. And I was thinking, I must take a painkiller soon. And then I just thought, well, I don't need a painkiller. What's happened? And it was these patches. So
you're feeling the impact.
Yes. So those are good. I always have one if
as needed. You can.
Yeah, that's in my kind of my first aid kit.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, it's more for me. It's more kind of, what can't I go to bed without?
Right.
Because
okay.
sleep is the thing that goes for me. Some people, when they get run down or overwhelmed, they get colds or tummy upsets. For me, it's I can't sleep. So my nighttime routine is a sight to behold. So I have a bite guard because I grind my teeth. Yeah. So that really has improved my sleep, and I believe it allows you to get into deeper sleep because you're not constantly slightly waking yourself up with your teeth grinding.
I've got mine every night. I can't live without it.
I know. I had to always take it in hand luggage because I can't bear for it to get lost.
Yes,
I don't want it to get lost in my luggage. I always want it near me. So that has been an absolute game changer for the past 10 years. And I remember one night my dentist said, I think you really should get one of these because I can see you're cracking your teeth. You know, you are going to need new teeth if you don't stop grinding your teeth.
Right.
And so I bit the bullet. I paid for it. But then what I noticed was how much better instantly my sleep was. It was like somebody had turned up the volume on my dreams, and I felt like I was properly in REM sleep. And I woke up and thought, whoa, what just happened there? It was incredible. I take ashwagandha for sort of relaxing. I take magnesium tablets.
Yes.
I take, what else do I take? I have an eye mask, really nice eye mask from Silk, which has these special indents, because if you have eyelash extensions, which I do, which I absolutely swear by. I'm not very high maintenance, but eyelash extensions have been a game changer. They've got little pockets so that you don't squash your extensions and they don't fall out. And there's one other thing I take. Reishi mushroom.
Okay.
By Hyphosterterra, which has been shown to help sleep. So I'm only just starting that. So
wow, you've got a proper ritual.
Yeah, I know. And I take CBD drops by Unique. CBD. Yeah. They really do help.
And then do you take supplements in the morning as well, or is it's kind of? I will take mainly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I told you I rattled. I take collagen supplements by Ingenious, and I take what else? I'm trying another mushroom one, a cordyceps one, which is a multi-mushroom, which is for gut health, but also for performance and mental clarity. So I think it's got lion's mane in there. I'm really enjoying learning about the medicinal properties of mushrooms when they're sourced properly. And so Hyphosterterra do seem to be one of the world leaders in mycotherapy, as it's called. So in the morning, yes, I will take usually a vitamin C, definitely vitamin D. And I have been taking, I had COVID not so long ago. It's the first time I got it. And I had a really good immune supplement by Inessa and Katie Brindle. Again, my Chinese medicine person, she sent me a collection. It was a tea that you make up with cinnamon, licorice, so the raw ingredients, the barks. You add ginger, lemon, mandarin peel, organic, cloves, and it makes the most delicious tea. But I have it cold, and I just have it as a drink because
I'd love to try that.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous. So I have that.
Amazing. Wow. So you've got it all sorted. Thank you so much. What an interesting conversation. So much to take away. I'm definitely joining your next class online.
Love to have
So
you.
it's Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yeah, 8 a.m. on Instagram at Victoria Woodhall.
Amazing. And is there, what else have you got coming up? You mentioned the classes, the formal platform.
Yeah.
Where can we find out more when that's going to be released?
On my Instagram. So
okay,
yeah, I think that's probably
so
TBC, and also obviously Get the Glosses is getthegloss.com, where we write about health, beauty, and wellness.
So follow both platforms, lots of exciting things. So stay tuned. Thank you so much, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you.